Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be building a product landing page for a fictional company called Studia that sells cameras and microphones. So this is the landing page that we're going to build. Just has a nice looking showcase and then a grid of the types of microphones that it would technically have, and then a featured section, and then finally a kind of call to action section and the footer at the bottom. And yeah, that is going to be it. So let me open up Visual Studio Code and we can get started. Before we jump into VS Code, I have a repository called Studia landing page, which I'm also going to leave in the description. And I'm just going to go to this green button and click on this button to copy this link to the repository. And then I'm going to jump into VS Code and open my terminal. And then I'm just going to say cd into my desktop and git clone this, which should now clone the repository in my desktop. Okay, and then I'm going to say code into Studia landing page, which should open up Visual Studio Code into this folder, just like so. So let me close this, and we can have this full screen. Fantastic. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is actually, I want to clean up my files. So I'm going to remove everything inside here, except for this part, of course. So I'm just going to select everything to the bottom, just remove it because we're going to add it in once again. And I've left this in because these are our global variables and I don't want to copy this once again. And then we don't really need the update.js file, so you can actually delete it. And then in the index.html, we can as well delete everything from inside here as well, so that we can start from scratch. And for the images, these are just going to be the images that we're going to use in this project. Now, the first thing that I want to do is mention that I'm going to be using an extension called Live Server. Where is it? This extension right here. And I like it because it provides a live reload feature or a hot reloading feature, where every time that I make a change in my editor, then it's also going to reflect in my browser. So it just speeds up development quite a bit. And you might also want to look into auto rename tag. And what this does is that every time that I change the beginning or ending tag of an HTML element, then it will automatically change the corresponding tag so that I don't have to manually do it. Okay, so those are the two extensions that are worth mentioning. And then for this project, we're going to be using vanilla CSS and we're going to supplement it with a bit of Tailwind, just because I think it's going to be a bit faster. And yeah, so we can get started. So I'm going to go into my index.html and I'm just going to say exclamation and enter, which will generate an HTML boilerplate for me. And then for the title here, I'm just going to say Studia microphones, and then just copy this. And I'm going to add a meta tag here with the name of description. And the content for this is going to be Studia microphones once again. And then I'm going to add another meta tag with the name of author. And the content for this is going to say my name. You can place your name here. And I'm just going to place a comment and say link Tailwind. So this is where we're going to link Tailwind CSS. And then I'm going to place another comment and say link fonts. So this is where we're going to link our fonts. And finally, I'm going to say link CSS. And actually, no, instead of saying this, I can just do it. So I'm just going to say link my style sheet. So style.css, like so, which is this file right here. And yeah, let's go ahead and let's grab Tailwind and let's grab our fonts. So I'm going to go back into my browser and then I'm going to go into fonts.google.com. So I'm going to look for a font called Rounded M1 Plus, this font right here. I'm going to grab this and then I'm going to grab the regular 400 and the extra bold 800. So select the styles and just copy these link tags. And then once I copy these link tags, then I'm going to go inside here and I'm just going to paste it here. Okay, and then let's head over into cdnjs.com and let's grab Tailwind. So cdnjs.com and let's grab Tailwind CSS. So just grab this link tag right there. And then we can paste it here, and that should be fine. Now let me just render out our main element here with an h1 that says Studia, and to see what we have on the screen. And then I'm just going to right click on this and say open with Live Server, and let's see what we have. And there we go. So I'm going to place this to the side and place this to the other side, so you can just style it side by side and move a bit faster. So once we have this, then we need our header first. So instead of returning an h1 here, I'm going to return a header element here, and inside here I'm going to have a div with a class of logo, like so, and I'm using emmet, that's why I can use these shorthand properties. And then inside this div with the class of logo, I'm going to have my image, and actually first of all I should have an href, because I want this image, when I click on it, I want it to redirect me to my index.html page, which is my home page. And then let me link my image. So this is coming from images /header logo.svg, and here I'm just going to say Studia microphones, like so. And if I save this, then we should see our logo right there. Fantastic. And then below this div with the class of logo, I'm going to have a nav element with another list, and this another list is going to have two list items. Each of these are going to have anchor tags. So I'm just chaining all of them so that I can just do all of it once, and this is what it generates for me. And these are not going to be going anywhere, and the first one is going to say cameras, and the second one is going to say microphones, like so. And when I save this, then it should appear right there. Fantastic. And then finally, we're going to have another div with a class of CTA, which is our call to action section, or our call to action button rather. And inside here, I'm going to have a button with a class of btn-cta, and this is going to say get in touch, like so. Let me change this into common case, and we're going to have this. Now, if you've not linked Tailwind right here, then this is going to be just a bit different. Let me show you by commenting this out. So this is what we would have if we didn't link Tailwind. So Tailwind already resets some of the styles for us so that we don't have to manually do it ourselves. So once you have this, then let me go into my style.css, and let me just say that for every UL, I want the list style type to be none, so that I don't have any bullets for list items. And then for the images, I'm just going to say all should have a max width of 100%, so that they don't go outside of the device width, and introduce a horizontal scroll bar. And then on the body, I'm going to link my font family. So this is what we're going to have as the font family on the body. So this is the font that we imported, and it has a fallback of sans serif. And then once I have this, then let me set up my paragraph once again to have a line height of 1.8. The next thing that I want to do is just style out my buttons that I'm going to use. I already know that I'm going to have a BTN CTA that I've just styled out. So I'm going to say background color should be bright orange. Okay, that's going to be for my call to action button. And then I'm going to have a border of 2 pixels, border width and solid. And then I'm going to say bright orange once again for the call to action button. And then I'm going to go above this and just say that for every button that I'm going to have, I don't want to be able to select the text inside the buttons like this, right? So I'm going to say user select, user-select, and set this to none. And notice this, now I can't select the text inside the button anymore. And then inside here, let me just change the color for this to white, which is a variable that we have right here. Something else that we can do is transition. So I'm going to add a transition all the properties by 0.4 seconds and just say is in out, like so. And then let's add a hover state for the call to action button. So target the hover state, and I'm going to say background color, set this to transparent. And then let's set the padding. I actually didn't set the padding here, so let me set the padding to 10 pixels on the top and bottom and 20 pixels on the left and right. And then on the hover state, then I want the padding to increase on the left and right to 40 pixels. So let's save this and let's see what we have. And this is what we want. And I should actually change the color on the hover state to bright orange as well. So would you look at that? Looking amazing. Fantastic. Now let's deal with our header. Let's go inside our header here and let's give this a class of flex. So we are now jumping back into Tailwind, and then I'm going to say items-center and justify-between, like so, which will take it to the end. Let me have a padding of 5 all around, so that we're going to have this. And then what I want to do on mobile screens is that I don't want this call to action button to appear by default. So I'm going to go right inside here and I'm going to set this to hidden, which will make it to display none basically in CSS. And then I'm going to say that for medium screen, so at about 768 pixels, then I want it to display block. And if I increase this, then look at that, right around there, it displays as block, and less than that, it disappears, which is what I want. And then let me go inside this UL, give this a class name, sorry, not a class name, this is not React, so a class of flex, like so, and then go inside this first list item, give this a class of margin on the X of 1, just to, or rather let's say 2, just to separate it out a bit. This is too small, let's say 3, like so. And notice that I'm only adding the margin on the first one. That's because I don't want this second list item to have another margin on its right side, okay, because it already has a padding right here of 5, because we have a padding of 5 all around on the header. Okay, so that we have this. Now once we have our header, notice that I'm putting everything inside my main element, and let me just comment this to make it a bit easier. So this is the header, and then inside here we're going to have the showcase. So for the showcase, I'm going to create a section in the class of showcase, like so, and then inside here I'm going to have a div, and this div is going to have an h1 that says Studia streaming mic, okay, and then above this I'm going to have an h3 that says featured, and then below this I'm just going to generate some lorem ipsum for my paragraph. So I'm going to say lorem 15, and then below this paragraph I'm going to have a button with a class of btn-showcase, which we're going to create, and this is going to say browse microphones, like so. And then below this div we're going to have an image, okay, so this div I'm just going to place an image here. The source is going to be /images, and it's called hero.jpg, and for the alt I'm just going to say Studia hero image, like so, and save this, and we should have this on the screen. Fantastic. So the next thing that I want to do is actually I want this to be black in color as well. So inside this div I'm going to give this div a class of bg black, so that we're going to have that, and then change the text inside to white, like so. And then for small screens I just want to center everything, so center all the text, and then for medium screens then I want the text to go back to the left, okay. So this is why I like Tailwind. I can just add media queries kind of inline. Okay, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is go inside my CSS, because this has a color of bright orange, the H3. So right inside here I'm going to place a comment that says showcase, and I'm going to say for the class of showcase I want to target the H3, give this a color of bright orange, so that it just changes the color like so. And then I'm going to go back inside here and style it better by saying set this to uppercase, let's say text 3XL, that's too big, let's say 2XL. And probably I'm going to add another style here called letter spacing, and I'm adding this inside my CSS because the letter spacing in Tailwind is not that much, and I want to add quite a bit of letter spacing here, so 5 pixels. And then font weight, set this to 800, which is what we imported. What else? We can go back inside here, and on this div I can place a padding of 5 all round, and then let me go inside this h1, give this a class of font bold and text -4XL, so that we're going to have that, and then margin top of 10 and margin bottom of 5, separate it out just like that. Fantastic. And then let's go inside this paragraph, give this a class of margin bottom of 5 to separate it out from this button. And then let's go inside our CSS, sorry for jumping so much, and right below this I'm going to target the btn-showcase, and I'm just going to copy all of these styles, so copy them here, and then I'm going to change this to gray, like so, which is our color. The text will remain white, and so will that. And then I'm just going to copy the hover state for this, copy this, paste this downwards, change this to showcase for the hover state. And the color for this is going to be white instead of transparent, so white, like so. The color for the text color is going to change back to gray. Okay, fantastic. So once we have this, then what I want to do is, I don't want, this has a kind of gray border. I don't know whether you can see it, but it has a gray border, and that's because of this. So on the hover state, then I just want to reset this, place this here, and change this to white, so that the gray border no longer appears. And we're going to have this, look at this button, looking fantastic. Now on mobile screens I want the image to appear first and then the text. So let's go into our index.html, and right inside here I'm going to say display this as a flex, which will do that. And then I'm going to say flex column reverse, which will take the image on top, like so. So the image comes first and then the text on the bottom. And then for bigger screens, what I want to happen is I want these two to be a grid, so that this will be the first grid on the left, and then the image will go to the right as the second grid. So let me do that right away by saying here that for medium screens, then I want this to display as a grid, and then grid columns 2, and with no gap, of course. And notice that I don't have this MD flag on this second property, and the reason for that is because the property of grid columns 2 will only work when the element has a positioning of grid or display grid. So let me save that. Let's see how this looks. Right around here, look at that, looking fantastic, almost fantastic. But notice how I don't want this kind of space to be here. So let's fix that by going inside the image and giving this image a class of width-full, which will fix that. Okay, fantastic. And then right around here, notice how just before it changes, the image doesn't go all the way to the end and it kind of leaves this space. Now on bigger screens, that is not an issue, okay? But in case you're mobile or you have a device that is just around this width, then this kind of might be a bother in terms of layout. So let's fix that as well by setting the image here to height of full, like so. Look at that. That now it scales up and scales down appropriately, looking fantastic. Now on very large screens, what I want to have is I want all of this to be inside a max width, so that it doesn't go all the way to the end. So I'm going to go inside my main section here, and Tailwind has a class of container, okay? And look what it does. It just limits the width just a bit, okay? Just limits the width quite not all that much, but it just leaves a bit of space. But I don't want to use this class of container because it's just too small for me. So I'm going to give the main element a class of wrapper, and then I'm going to go inside my style.css, and at the bottom I'm going to add a media query, and I'm going to targeting a mean width of 1280 pixels, and I'm going to say that for the class of wrapper, which is my entire element, my entire website basically, I'm going to say I want this to have a max width of 1200 pixels, and then set the margin to auto so that it goes back to the center. And look at this. So we are going to have this is looking much better, okay? And then now that we have added this, we can kind of forget about it for a moment. And then let's go inside our index.html and let's continue creating our section. So our next section, I'm just going to call it section 2. So we're going to have a section, of course, and then inside this section, we're going to have a div with a class of cards, okay? And then inside this div with a class of cards, I'm going to have a div, and then inside this div, I'm going to have an image that is coming from /images, and it is called streaming.jpg, okay? And then right outside this div, I'm going to have an article, and this article is going to have an h3 that says streaming, and then below this h3, I'm going to have a paragraph that says Lauren 10, for example. So let me save this. Let's see what we have. We should have this on the screen. Okay, fantastic. And you know what? I've just noticed something. I don't want to hard code this image inside my HTML. Instead, I want to add it in my CSS. So what I'm going to do is remove this from here and give this div a class of overlay -1, and you'll see why we have -1 here. Okay, so let me save this and it should disappear. Fantastic. And then let's add the image in this class of overlay 1. So right below this, I'm going to say this is for the cards, and I'm going to say for the class of what do I call it? The class of cards, I want to target the overlay -1, and I'm going to say the background for this should be URL. Set this to /images/streaming.jpg, set it to no repeat, and center and cover, and then set the height to 400 pixels. Let me see what we have, and we should have this. Okay, fantastic. Now the reason why I have that is because I want to add another div inside here, and this div, I'm just going to say give this a class of overlay-inner, and the reason for this div is going to be I want this div to have a very slight background color so that this image is not so bright, because I'm going to position this text inside this image. So let me save this and let me go back inside here, copy this down right here, and let me target the class of overlay, dash inner, and let me set the background color to RGBA 0000.5, and then set the height to 400 pixels as well. So if we're going to have this, would you look at that? Now it's just a bit darker, so that now when I position this text inside and turn it to white, it is going to be readable, just to kill the contrast a bit. So let's go back inside here. Let's go inside this article, give this a class of absolute, and let's position to the bottom by 5, and let's say text dash center, and then text dash white, and then let's go inside this h3, give this a class of uppercase and text dash 3xl. That's too big, maybe not too big, let's say 2xl. I also want to add letter spacing on this. Okay, and before I forget, anytime that you add position absolute on a child element, always remember to position the parent element as relative so that it doesn't misbehave. And by misbehave, I mean this. When I save this image is going to go to the top. Okay, I don't want not the image, sorry, but the text. See how the text misbehaves here? I don't want this to happen. Instead, I want it to be positioned relative, or rather, sorry, absolute within this relative element. So I'm going to go inside the cards class here and add a class of relative, like so, which will take it back right there. Fantastic, isn't it? It is. And right inside here, let me add a padding of around 3, just to push it away from the edges. And what we can do is I want to target this class of cards and target the article and then the h3, because I want to add letter spacing on this h3. So let's go inside the cards, so the class of cards and then the article and then the h3. Let's have a letter spacing of 5 pixels, like so, and I should turn it into font 800 font weight, like so. Fantastic. And this looks just a bit small, so let me change this back to 3xl. Okay, that's looking fantastic. Let's say margin bottom of 5, separate it out. Let's say from the bottom, position it by 10. That's looking much better. Now what I want to do is I want to copy this class of cards downwards, because we're going to do this for 2 more cards. So copy this and paste it 1 and 2. So let me place a comment here saying third card, just so that I can tell the difference, and here saying second card, and this is first card, like so. And then change this to overlay 2 and change this to overlay 3. Okay, now when I save this image is still going to appear, but before I save that, let me change this to YouTubing, and I think it should say YouTubing mic, and this should also say streaming mic, right? And then at the bottom we're going to have recording mic. Fantastic. So save this and look at this. Now everything is positioned right here. Okay, now that is not what I wanted. So let's go inside our style.css and let's copy this cards class, the one that has the overlay -1. So copy these 2 classes and then just paste it here, and then I'm going to change this overlay 1 to overlay 2, like so, and change this image to YouTubing, like so. And then I'm going to grab this once again and copy it downwards, change this to overlay 3, like so, change this to recording.jpg, and once I save this, then they should be separated. Look at that. So we have our streaming mic, we have our YouTubing mic, and we have our recording mic, and all of them have the background color, the translucent background color right there. But for this, I want this to have a slightly darker background color, so this is overlay 2. So this says 0.65, so the image doesn't really affect the contrast all that much. And would you look at that? That's looking fantastic. Now the next thing that I do want to do is I want to target this section 2. So give this a class of section-2. And the reason for this is because I want to play around with this third grid, which I'm going to display as a grid, of course. And I want on bigger screens, the first image here and the second image are going to display as two stacks. And then the third one is going to display as one full stack at the bottom. And what I mean is this right here. So this is going to be the first, the second, and this is going to be the third. So let's do this. Let me go inside right above here. Let me target the dot section 2. And then I'm going to say display grid and grid template columns. This is just going to be one fraction for now. and it's not going to have a grid gap because I want this to be following one another. And then I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to add another media query, and I'm going to say add media for a min width of 768 pixels. Then I want to target this class and change this to repeat twice and one fractional column each, so that now when I increase this, look at this right around there. So this is the first one, the second one, and then this is the third one. Now on situations like this, what I want to happen is I want this to span the entire width so that this space is no longer empty. So let's do that by going right inside here and saying that for the cards, I want to get the overlay -3, and I want to say grid column. I want it to span from the first one to the third one. So let's save this, and that doesn't do anything. This doesn't do anything. So let's try this once again. So let me target the cards, okay? And then let's say for what is it? The cards, I want the nth child, and I want, can't see anything, and I want the third one. So this is the first one, second one, and the third one to span grid column 1 to 3, and this should be it. Look at that, looking fantastic. Now, one thing that you'll notice that is a problem immediately is the text is no longer to the center. So let's fix that. Remember that the text is positioned absolute, right? In the article. Okay, right inside here, we have positioned the text in the article as absolute. So let's target the article right around here. Let's say for the cards, I want to target the article, and I'm going to say position to the left by 50%, which will take it to the kind of center. To the center, but we don't want this to happen. Instead, we want it to go back to the absolute center. So let's say transform and translate on the x-axis by -50%, which will recenter it like so, looking fantastic. I think I can increase the width of this article to 100% so that it's not so constricted as it is. So right inside here, I'm going to say set the width here to 100%. Which will do this. This is much better, And would you look at that? Now on large screens or on medium screens, I want to have a margin on the top here, and then I want to introduce a grid gap. So let's do that right here by saying add a grid gap, and this grid gap is going to be 20 pixels, like so. And then on this section 2, I want to say margin of, let's say, 30 pixels on the top and bottom, and 0 on the left and right, so that we are going to have this. And I've just noticed something where I did not fix this because I want this to go to the center. So let's go ahead and fix this, and actually let's start from the header because I don't want this padding on the left and right on the header anymore. So let's go back where we had our header right inside here, and I'm going to say that for medium screens, then I want the padding on the X to be 0. Okay, which will take this to the end, and then let's deal with our section next. So for the section, what I want to happen is I want this to move to the center. Okay, I want this div to move to the center. So I could technically go here and say items-center, which will do this. Okay, and in order to fix this, then I'm just going to take this black color from here and paste it inside my section, and it will do that. Would you look at that, looking fantastic. And let's go ahead and deal with our next section, which is our kind of grid, or another grid I should say. So below this section 2, which ends right here, I'm going to have a featured section. So I'm going to give this a class of featured, like so. And this idea, I'm going to have a div with a class, or rather, no, let me not add any class. And then this div is going to have an image, and the source for this is going to be images and featured1.jpg. Okay, and then below this image, okay, so below this image, I'm going to have an h3 that says camera, and then below this h3, I'm going to have a paragraph that says lorem 10 once again, and I'm using emmet, that's why I can do this, by the way. And then on the bottom, I'm going to have a button with the class of btn-showcase, which we already styled, and then this is going to say I want this, like so. And then let's copy this div 2 more times. So if you're on Windows, you can say Shift and Alt and hold and press the down key, so 1 2, and then let's change this to featured 2 and change this to featured 3, change this to stream deck, and then change this to microphone, like so. So save this and let's see what we have. Okay, so let's begin styling this out. I'm going to go inside this image right here, give this a class of width-4 so that it goes all the way to the end. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste it in this second image and in this third image as well, and save this, and that happens. And then I'm going to go to this section and give this a margin on the Y of 10, just to add some bit of spacing. And for small screens, I just want the image to span the entire width, so that's fine. But on this div, or rather, sorry, not on the div, and actually I should create a div for this. For the H3, the paragraph, and the button, I want each one of these to be inside a div so that I can just tell all of them at once. Really, why does it keep doing that? So cut it out, place it inside a div, and then I'm going to give this div a class of padding on the Y of 5. So not padding on the Y, by padding all around. Okay, sorry. So that we're going to have this, and then give this a class of font dash bold and text dash XL, or let's say 2XL. Okay, fantastic. Let's say margin bottom of 3, separate it out just a bit more from the paragraph. And then for this paragraph, we're going to have a class name of margin bottom of 5, separated from the button, and which already styled, by the way. And I should probably add a border around this button so that it's more visible when you hover over it. And we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to grab this div, this H3 all the way to the button, cut it out and place it inside a div. And then I'm going to copy this style here, copy it and paste it here. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same for this, cut it out, place a div, paste it inside. Did I do that correctly? What did I do? So cut this out, add a div like so, give this a class of padding all around of 5. Okay, so that when I save this, then we should almost be done with this, but we are not, because I still need to add all of this on the H3s. So right here and right here, paste this inside. Okay, and on the paragraph, I have a margin bottom of 5, so just copy this and paste it here and paste it here as well. Okay, that's looking much better, much better. So let me add a border around this button so that I can see it even when I hover over it, because it's currently white and it's blending in with the background. So where I had btn-showcase right here, the border is going to be 2 pixels solid, and okay, I see why I had it as gray. I see why. So that it's going to do this. Okay, it's going to do this. I think this should be fine. The one of the showcase though is still going to have a border of gray when you hover over it, but it's not really all that visible and it doesn't really affect anyone all that much. So I'm just going to leave it as well. And then what do we need to do? We need to display this as a grid. So let's do that in our index.html. I'm going to go back to my section here, and then I'm going to say display this as a grid with grid columns to be 2 and a grid gap of 5. And then for medium screens, then I want the grid columns to be 2, so grid columns to be 2. And then for extra large screens, then I want the grid columns to be 3. So let's see how this looks. Okay, so this is for medium screens. Look at this. For small screens, first, sorry, I did something wrong. This should be 1 and then 2 here and then 3. Okay, so this is 1 and then 2. And then for extra large screens, right around there, this is 3. And would you look at that? And our class of wrapper wraps everything around 1200 pixels. So this is looking much better. Now for medium screens, once we start displaying this as a grid, then I want this text. Probably for medium screen, I could push this inwards as well. So let me just do that before I forget. So let me say for MD, let me have a padding on the X of 5 to push it inwards just a bit. Okay, and if I push this inwards, I should probably do the same for this. I should probably, so let me remove, what did I edit right here? So let me remove this from here and just say padding on the X to be 5 to push it everything inwards. I think that will be much better. That will be much better, I think so. Which means that I can remove this, where was it? The padding of 5 here. which means I added this div for nothing, but that's okay. So remove it from there and remove it from here as well, which will push this text back to the end. Okay, this was not for nothing. I should probably give this a class of margin top of 5. Push it just a bit downwards from the image. So just copy this and paste it here, and then paste it here as well. Just push this up just a bit away from the image, and then let's see on big screens. Let's see how this looks. This looks fine. Okay, and for XL screens, let me see. Yeah, for XL screens, for extra large screens, right? Then I no longer want this padding to be on the X-axis, because I want this to span all the way to the end, so that it is aligned with this image. So let's do that right away by going right inside here and saying that for XL screens, then I want the padding on the X to be 0. And there we go. Fantastic. Looking amazing. Now, once we have this, then we need another section, which is going to be our kind of call to action section. And let's create that right away, right below this section. And let's say, I actually don't have a comment for this. So let's just create a section. And inside here, I'm going to have a div. It's going to be almost something similar that we did on the showcase, but it's not going to have all the technicality. So let's do that. Let's have our image. This is coming from /images, and it's called get yours, like so. And then we're going to have another div. This is going to have an h3 that says get yours today. And then below this h3, I'm going to have a paragraph that says lorem 20. And then below this paragraph, I'm going to have a button with a class of btn showcase. You can see we are using this quite a bit. And this is going to say bye. Don't just say bye. So let's save that. Let's see what we have. And we have this. Okay, so let's style this out. Give this a class of font bold. Let's say text-3XL. Let's say margin top of 10, margin bottom of 5. And let's say what else? We can go inside this section, give this a class of padding on the X of 5. And then for XL screens, let's say padding on the X of 0 to reset it. Okay, and then I can say right here, I want this to be a grid and grid columns to be 1 with a gap of 5. And then for medium screens, then I want the grid columns to be 2. Let's see what we have. Let's save this. And we're going to have this margin on the top of 10 is too big. Let's say 5. And actually, if I have 5 on the top, let's say margin on the bottom of 3. Yep, this is looking much better. Let's go to the paragraph. Give this a class of margin bottom of 5. Separate it out from the button, like so. And then let's scale this up. Let's see how this looks. So on larger screens, this is how it's going to look. And I just want this to go to the center. So right inside here, I'm going to say for MD, let's say items dash center, which will push this downwards right there. Okay, fantastic. Now I could probably add a bit of padding on the y-axis, so padding on the y of 10, so that I have a bit of leeway when scrolling and there's some bit of spacing here. So let's save that, and we should have this. Okay, but this is just a bit smaller than this, so let me say padding on the bottom of 10 instead of on the y-axis. Okay, that's looking fantastic, and this is what it's going to look like on larger screens. So you're going to have this, and the button is going to have the same hover effect. And then let's create our footer next. So for the footer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go outside of this main section, and then let me place a comment that says footer, and then I'm going to have a footer HTML5 element with a class of footer, like so. And then inside here, I'm going to have a div, and this div is going to have a class of footer dash inner. And then inside this div, I'm going to have another div, and this div is going to have an image which is going to be coming from /images, and it's called footer logo, like so. And then below this, I'm going to have a UL with 2 list items. Each of them should have anchor tags, like so. And then this is going to say cameras, and this is going to say microphones, like so. And then outside of this, we're going to have another div with a button that has a class of btn-cts, or call to action button, that says get in touch, not touch. so that when you save this, then we're going to have this on the screen. Now for the footer is going to have a black background color, like so. And then for the footer inner, I'm going to say flex, and then items dash center, and justify dash center, and then text dash center as well, so that we're going to have this. And then let me say flex column, so flex col, like so. And then probably I should change the text to white. Fantastic. And then let me go inside this div, sorry, not this div, but this UL. Let's give this UL a class of margin on the Y of 10, so on the top and bottom of 10, which will push all of this aside. And then probably let me go inside this list item, give this a class of margin on the bottom of 3 to push it away from the second list item, just like so. And then let's go back into the footer and have a padding of 5 all around, so that this pushes downwards just a bit, and we're going to have this. And let's see how this is going to look on larger screens. So I'm going to say inside this div, the class of footer inner, then I'm going to say that for medium screens, then I want this to reset back to flex row, like so. And then instead of having justify center, I'm going to say justify between for medium screens. And we're going to have this. Now for medium screens, I want this to align as a flex as well. So for medium screens, first of all, I'm going to reset this margin. So I'm going to say margin bottom of 0. And then I'm going to go inside here, and I'm going to say that for medium screens, then I just want to say flex. Okay. And for medium screens here, I want the margin on the x-axis now to be 3 instead of the bottom. And we're going to have this. Would you look at that, looking amazing? Now the reason why I have this class of footer here, and then another div with the class of footer inner, is that I don't want this footer to span all the way to the end. Okay. And if I were to add a max width on the footer here, then the black background color would end right around here, which I don't want to happen. Instead, I only want these elements inside the black background color to end here. So what I'm going to do is right inside this div, I'm going to target the div with the class of footer inner in my CSS. So right around here, I'm going to place a comment that says footer, and I'm going to say footer dash inner. Then I want to have a max width of 1200 pixels, and then set the margin to auto so that it centers. Okay. And we are going to have this, and I've done something wrong because I don't want this to be here. Instead, I want it to be inside a media query. So right here, and we are going to have this. Would you look at this, looking amazing? So we have created a product landing page that looks amazing, and you can add it to your portfolio, if I do say so myself. And let me increase the height of this third image, because this camera is just a bit cut out. So not this camera, but this microphone is just a bit cut out. So let me see where I have overlay 3 right here. I'm going to select both of these and change. And actually, you know what? I don't want to have such a big height on mobile screen. So let me add a media query right around here. Let me say at media, min width of 1024 pixels. Then I just want to paste this in and remove this. Oops. Remove this, and then remove this, and change this height to 600 pixels. And this should be fine. Looking almost amazing. Looking almost amazing. I think this looks fine as well. Probably this text should be at the center, but I don't want to micromanage everything. And yeah, I think that is going to be it for this video. I think this landing page looks very, very nice. It looks very, very nice. Let me just add a bit of padding here to push this in a bit. Don't want to micromanage everything. Let me add a bit of padding on my showcase. Let's say for medium screens, I want the padding on the X, or rather padding on the left, to be 10. Push this inwards just a bit. And we're going to have this. So I think this looks nice. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.